I'm Brittany, this is Chuaning, and welcome to Gaywatch, where we watch and read gay things. Thank you for being here today as we continue reading Volume 10 by Erha. By Erha? Wow. Volume 10 of Erha by Meat Bun is how you actually say that if you're used to saying words. Here's how it works. We read for a couple of hours. We take a small break around halfway through, and we usually get through 40 to 50 pages-ish. Now's another time where my ADHD gives me an absolute train wreck on everything else I'm supposed to say. Is this not the second stream in a row where this has happened to me? I believe it is, if my computer will cooperate with me. Thank you. I have never read this series before, and will therefore react, discuss, and theorize while reading. Therefore, no spoilers are allowed in the chat or the comments for the sake of myself and new readers. We have a book chat on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 2:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for YouTube members and patrons to discuss what we read in the previous stream right before we read more in the next one. If you are looking for more queer bookish chats, there is an evergreen link to the public version of the Gaywatch Discord down in the description box. And there are also trigger warnings available in the description, should you need them. Previously, on Erha, one or two things may have happened, a couple of them back to back. Huabinan is no more. In a rather fantastical way. The beauty feasts are now on the other side of the door in the demon realm. The bridge is crumbling, and Moron, Tishan Jun, however you want to name him, no longer under the influence of Huabinan. That's what we're headed into today. He just swooped in. We just saw his beautiful chest again, as did Chuaning. We got to have that moment before like a huge ass flood, and now we're gonna be running. And is anyone else so traumatized by Meat Bun's bullshit that now that Moron Tishan Jun has dropped back in, I'm waiting for Chuaning to drop dead now. This is what the end of 2 years and 10 volumes of Meat Bun does to a person. That's the axe hanging over my head at the moment. Because we can't have nice things. So, surely, you just kind of think of the meanest thing possible. You multiply that by 5, and then I feel like you have a good paranoid, what is Meat Bun gonna do to me next theory. We are on page 163 for chapter 308, which is called Pitching In to Keep the Flood Out. The Xuanwu barrier, deployed before the space-time gate, was their very last line of defense. If the waves broke through here, they would flood the other world behind it. There is an order to the mortal realm. Should the order collapse, the heavens will render their judgment. All shall return to primordial chaos. Oh, right, to say nothing of the primordial dragon that's now flying around. One or two things are going on. According to the most ancient scrolls, the space-time gate could not be allowed to be torn open to an unmanageable size, or both universes would be inundated by floodwaters, reducing the earth and all that walked upon it to nothingness. The assembled cultivators were still struggling to wrap their heads around these shocking developments. Relatable! Many of them knew not what to do but cry. Why am I in this book all of a sudden? Who could blame them? Precious few could face the apocalypse with any kind of composure. But the two Mei brothers and the time-worn Shui Meng who'd already lived through Tishan Jun's reign were different. They'd long anticipated this cataclysm. Cultivators specializing in offensive techniques and healing, cross the space-time gate and return to your world, said Mei Hanshui. Cultivators specializing in defensive techniques, step forward. Follow me to the Xuanwu barrier. Someone piped up. What are we doing? Reinforcing it. The cultivators looked at the barrier, which stretched from the earth all the way into the heavens, then glanced at the roiling waves bearing down on them, their stomachs clenched in terror. Can we really keep the water out? A lady cultivator asked, voice quavering. Seeing that this lady cultivator had quite a pretty face, Mei Hanshui's eyes curved into roguish crescents. Perhaps everything was a game to him, even life and death. The world was ending, and he still had it in him to tease. Hard to say if we can or not, but we'll die for sure if we don't try. Does that scare you, miss? The lady cultivator stared at him, speechless. What does it say about me that I'm literally like, right now? Don't answer that question. Mei Hanshui walked over, face stern. This is no time for flirting. It's exactly the time for flirting, or am I supposed to find myself a ghost bride down in hell? It was the first time the twins had ever appeared together before a crowd. Oh my god, that's right! That's not a we know that they're brothers in the greatest punchline ever to happen in a series, but how common is that knowledge? Because I don't think that's common knowledge. Oops. Seeing that they were, in fact, two brothers, the elder cold as frost, the younger warm as sunshine, the lady cultivator's jaw dropped. You guys are, she stammered, agog. Mei Hanshui grinned and batted his lashes at her. Don't you think I'm the better looking one? The lady cultivator's mouth was still hanging open. You guys... The man with the demeanor of an icy cave turned on his heel and strode to the edge of the space-time gate, sleeves fluttering. His amplified voice reached the ears of everyone in the crowd. Attack, cultivators! Step back! Defense cultivators, come forward. Quickly, please. Someone called out a question. Even if we block the flood with the Xuanwu barrier, that's only temporary, isn't it? Surely we can't stand here and keep the water out forever. That's right, what if the flood never subsides? Mei Hanshui shook his head. Half of you will block the flood. The other half will close the space-time gate. Thousands of cultivators fell silent. Close the space-time gate. The great dome of the sky had been torn to shatters, the rift so catastrophic they could see neither its beginning nor its end. The two universes had been wholly melded together. How the hell were they supposed to close the gate? As if sensing their unspoken question, Mei Hanshui said, The sigil of the returning billows. Now what in the fuck is that? Deep within the crowd, the young Shuimeng blinked. The name of this spell was familiar, though he couldn't quite place it. He was still pondering when the Xuanji elder spoke up. Isn't that the reversal spell Yu Heng invented? At this reminder, comprehension dawned on the members of Baton Manor. Prior to the heavenly rift at Butterfly Town, Li Wuxian had brought a gaggle of disciples to demand an explanation from Xishan Peak. After a series of misunderstandings, Chu Wanning had flatly pronounced that the creator of the sigil of the returning billows was none other than himself. Oh my God, that's right. I remember that conversation. I don't fucking like her. I hate her so much I lost my place. Dear God. Here we are. The sigil of the returning billows can reverse a spell that's already been cast, said Mei Hanshui. Even such an enormous one? Someone asked incredulously. No single person could do it, replied Mei Hanshui. That's why all of you will have to help. The crowd exchanged glances. Quite a few retreated back toward the space-time gate. I haven't got much spiritual energy. I won't be able to hold off the waves. Same here. I'm no good with defensive barriers at all. They weren't idiots. Reinforcing the Xuanwu barrier was dangerous, whereas closing the rift would be easier. All of Xisheng Peak and Tashui Palace had stepped forward, along with some brave volunteers from other sects, but a good number shrank back, crowding behind the rip in the sky. Mei Honshui glared at the cowards, his grim expression darkening further. Why, if only there was a group that had been led by a really good man who strove to help in times of crisis, regardless of being paid or danger and risk, based on whether or not it was the right thing to do. If everyone plans to hide in the back, who will protect us in the front? This scenario was all too common. In any all-out battle between two armies, everyone knew death was imminent if the front lines fell, but they still hoped to be stationed at the rear. They were at an impasse. Zheng Shi's voice rang out. I will. Seeing their leader come forward, Guyueya's cultivators looked around, then joined him in approaching the Xuanwu barrier. Healers had the weakest spiritual energy among the 10 great sects. Guyueya stepping out was like a slap in the face to those faint-hearted bastards. I'm experiencing that thing with Zheng Shi again. He insists on doing things that I really like and doing things that I really hate. In the Nuance series, I'm shocked. I know a few defensive techniques. I can pitch in, said Zhen Songming from Baton Manor. He walked to the front and took a spot at the Guyueya's cultivator's side, hugging his sword in silence. Bit by bit, their ranks swelled, and though their numbers were far from sufficient, they couldn't tarry. The first wave was swelling on the horizon. Quickly, called Mei Honshui. Ziming, cross over the gate and cast the sigil of the returning billows. Everyone else, come up to the Xuanwu barrier with me. Get ready to reinforce it. He stepped up to the enormous, translucent barrier and pressed his palms against it. Activate! Soon, many more pairs of hands joined his on this last boundary between worlds. Countless streams of spiritual energy, blue, green, red, converged upon the barrier wedged between earth and sky. Gradually, the image of a snake entwined with a tortoise began to glow in the night. The creature's tail coiled on the rocky ground as it stretched its head toward the heavens. The assembled cultivators had managed to activate the seal of the Xuanwu that powered this protective barrier. The first of the towering waves, churned up by the primordial phoenix, surged before them, mightier than 1,000 galloping horses or the yellow river roaring toward the sea. They stared at that muddy yellow crest, every muscle in their bodies strained taut. Mei Honshui called, "Get ready, it's close!" And then the enormous wave was upon them, rising 1,000 feet into the air. Violent spray misted their vision. Steady! The wave rivaled the legendary beasts in its fury. Even the Xuanwu barrier couldn't withstand its power. A few spots, weaker in spiritual energy, cracked. Water streamed through fissures like arrow wounds. Several of the weaker cultivators faltered under the impact. They fell to their knees, coughing up blood. "We need more people," Zheng Shi barked at the group behind them. But now that they'd witnessed the force of the waves, even fewer were willing to step forward. Behind them, Shui Meng was drawing the last strokes of the sigil of the returning billows. When he struck the array in midair, bolts of lightning crackled behind it and spider-webbed out toward the edges of the space-time gate. Like the cultivators pooling their power to hold off the flood, those in the rear channeled their energy into the sigil, striving to pull the gaping hole between the two universes closed. But the rift was so vast they couldn't see its ends. No one could tell whether its borders were shrinking. They watched and waited, sick with anxiety. She put me in the book again. Progress with the rift was slow, while those in the vanguard were quickly reaching their limits. As a second wave crashed against the barrier, more cultivators collapsed, unable to continue. The Xuanwu barrier cracked again, and water rushed over those behind it. Zheng Shi and the others quickly found their robes soaked. "We can't go on like this," said Mei Hongchui. "The Xuanwu barrier will shatter before the space-time gate is closed." His proclamation was met with an awful silence. The clatter of hoofbeats reached their ears. Turning, they spied a group of wandering cultivators and commoners approaching, the cultivators on swords and the commoners on horseback. The two figures in the lead came into focus. One was clad in fitted black robes, her features elegant. Yuang Shi! The other was a middle-aged woman, slightly unsteady on her sword. She was clad in vibrantly colored finery and wore a dazzling assortment of gold ornaments in her upswept hair. This was the richest merchant of Flying Flower Isle, Third Lady's son! Oh my god! Like Gandalf cresting the mountain on the morning of the third day, the cavalry. Where the fuck am I? I'm too happy. A dense crowd trailed behind them, dust billowing in their wake. They seemed to have brought all the refugees they could, men and women, young and old alike. Yuang Shi leapt gracefully from her sword. "We saw the commotion from miles off," she said, frowning. "We heard what happened on the way here." Her gaze swept over the crowd and fixed upon the failing Xuanwu barrier, then swung to the cultivators in the rear who, despite having spiritual energy to spare, had declined to help. As long as there were heroes who were courageous despite their frailty, there too would be cowards who were fearful despite their strength. Oh my god! A line for the fucking ages, and not the first one we've read in this series. I'm a little excited. What the fuck did she just say to me? As long as there were heroes who were courageous despite their frailty, there too would be cowards who were fearful despite their strength. It's on page 168. A person's soul and body weren't necessarily well matched. Excuse me. That line is absorbed into that quote as well. Yuang Shi ground her teeth in contempt. Thank you. Relatable. What a waste of talent. You cultivators don't even have the mettle of these commoners. Let them know. Using Qinggong, she soared lightly through the air and landed next to Zheng Shi, pressing her palms to the barrier. She wasn't the only one. The wandering cultivators and even commoners who had followed her hurried forward to lend a hand, no matter how weak they were. Even the most thick-skinned of those shrinking at the back were shamed by the sight. I'll help too. Forget it. Death is death. I'm coming too. Me too, me too. The throng before the Xuanwu barrier continued to grow. The tortoise and snake array that had dimmed and flickered now gleamed with renewed brilliance. The third wave slammed into them. Then the fourth. They were fighting against the heavens, battling fate itself. Look! A girl's sharp shout pierced the air. Is that the edge of the space-time gate? Her words broke over the crowd like a thunderclap. Trembling, everyone turned to look in the direction she pointed. Sure enough, at the edge of the horizon, the far end of the rift was faintly visible. It was moving slowly but surely toward the center of the sky, as the black tear in the heavens shrank. Hurry! Faster! Faster! Someone yelled through tears. We're doing it! It's going to close! Don't say That? Do you know whose series you're in? Shut up! It was a clear sign of hope. The eyes of those working the reversal spell shone once more with the desire to live. Everyone pressed their palms together, channeling their spiritual energy into the sigil of the returning billows. The space-time gate drew together, inch by painstaking inch. But the might of the heavens was beyond mortal measure. See? Although thousands joined their efforts, pouring everything they had into the protective barrier, it was still no match for the power of the gods. These humans were hardly more than ants, paltry and insignificant. I am once again reminded of the billionaires and everyone else. As yet another white-capped wave slammed into them, there was a brittle cracking sound. A fracture like a bolt of lightning snaked down the middle of the Xuanwu barrier. The crack stretched from the sky all the way down to the earth, beads of water seeping through all along its length. The cultivators paled. If the barrier failed now... The colossal boom of an earth-shattering explosion knocked them back. Torrents of water rushed in through the rupture, drowning the cultivators' desperate screams as they were swept off their feet. The deluge poured in like a squalling tempest. The older Shuimeng glanced back at the Xuanwu barrier from the other side of the space-time gate. "We have to close it faster," he called out, muscles standing out on his jaw. See? And I was nice today and didn't put a Deadpool in the field as a poll. A dead poll, you might say. I didn't. Asking who out of the following may very well die, and Shuimengs would have been on the list. I was nice. And if this happens to be the thing... Someone was rushing toward him with a gleaming silver sword in hand. He started as he recognized his younger self. Nobody fucking move. Nobody breathe. Where the okay, all right, hang on. Where fucking was I? Literally, I knocked myself so far off course. Where? This should not be that difficult. I only have so many options. There are only so many words on a page. Thank you. The older Shuimeng grabbed his other self by the shoulder. "Get back," he ordered with a scowl. "You know nothing about defensive barriers." "I have to give this back to him," the younger Shuimeng replied through gritted teeth. "Who?" His younger self pointed to a sickly pale Jiangxi, who was depleting himself to shore up the barrier without the support of his holy weapon. "Zhang Yichen, why do you have his sword?" We're gonna do this now. We can't do this right now. We literally can't afford more daddy issues right now. Not at this moment. Catch me in like a couple of chapters, maybe, possibly. I don't know. But like not right now. The younger Shuimeng's eyes widened. "You don't know?" Shuimeng shook his head. "I never knew him. He died long ago in our timeline." His eyes were distant. He'd been struggling so long just to survive. His memories of the time before war broke out, when everyone was still alive, were no longer clear. The fact that these two motherfuckers have that in common. The older Shuimeng thought for a moment, gaze fixed on Jiangxi's green-clad figure. Years ago, Tishan Jun demanded he hand over Guyue's secret scrolls. The techniques in them were as powerful as they were sinister, things like refining pills from the flesh of butterfly bone beauty feasts and dual cultivation methods used to pursue eternal life. A strange expression flitted across his younger self's face at the mention of dual cultivation. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," came the reply. There was a pause. And then what? Things are happening! Do you not, so many waves, so many phoenixes, so many, there's an apocalypse out here, man! Jiang Shi refused. He said the scrolls were evil. On the day he'd become sect leader, he'd burned them all. His younger self was silent, so Shui Meng continued. Tishan Jun was furious. He ordered Jiang Shi to write out another copy. Jiang Shi would do no such thing, so Tishan Jun killed him. Shui Meng closed his eyes. Zheng Yichen is a hero. I'm happy to see he's still alive in another world. The older Shui Meng opened his eyes and glanced downward. You didn't answer me. Why do you have his sword? The younger Shui Meng opened his mouth uncertainly. It was all he managed before another hair-raising crack split the air. Their eyes flew to the barrier, perilously close to failing. Yuang Shi and Mei Han Shui had both sunk to their knees. Jiang Shi remained on his feet, but spat a mouthful of blood. Jiang, the younger Shui Meng began. Jiang what? Was he still going to call him Jiang Shi? Or should he call him Jiang Zhongmen? That'd be one way of telling your older self from another timeline. It'd be quick. We're short on time. You could do that. Leaving the name half unsaid, he pelted over and thrust Shui Huang at Jiang Shi. When he caught sight of him, Jiang Shi's already wan complexion grew uglier. Fuck off. He shoved Shui Meng backward along with his own holy weapon. Stay by the rift, don't come looking for trouble. He choked up more blood. Aw, Dad. There were nicer ways to say that, but it's slightly stressful right now. Zheng Yichen. Hearing Shui Meng call him by his courtesy name, Jiang Shi coughed harder. He shot a glance over his shoulder, panting, the bright ferocity in his eyes concealing a seething storm of emotions. Fucking hell, who said you could call me that? Jiang Shi snapped. Keep my names, my given name and my courtesy name, out of your mouth. Jiang Shi's teeth were scarlet with blood, and tendons bulged in his neck from the strain of maintaining the barrier against the onslaught. Nevertheless, he made sure to slap Shui Meng with the very same admonishment he'd delivered upon their very first meeting. Insolent whelp. He giveth, he... A series of deafening groans came from the barrier. God, even the barrier has daddy issues. Shui Meng had no time to speak or think before Shui Huang, still clutched in his hand, dragged him backward. The jagged fracture splintered, enormous chunks of the barrier breaking off at its edges. Water poured in like a river. Everyone standing on the other side of the space-time gate felt a chill race down their spine. It was over. The apocalypse was nigh. All would return to formless desolation. Some fell to their knees, abandoning the sigil of the returning billows. Before heaven's judgment, they sobbed and kowtowed like the basest of servants, begging the gods for mercy. They raised their heads to the sky and screamed the unfairness of their fate, tears and snot streaming down their faces. The world was at an end. A beam of jade-green light speared through the sky overhead. Did you see that? What's going on? The cultivators were in the most desperate of straits. Even the smallest change made them tremble, to say nothing of such a dramatic development. Everyone's head snapped up to see a man clad in black and gold battle armor burst out of the sky on his sword. As he drew closer, they could see he was covered in wounds, as though someone had tried to execute him via 1,000 fine cuts. Despite his injuries, the vestiges of his good looks were unmistakable. It's Moron. That monster. Oh, Jesus, we're not gonna. Oh, Balderdash, what do you mean monster? It's clearly Mo Zongsha. Ma Yun of Taobao Estate crowed. Even an idiot. Oh my god, the way she takes swipes at this man is truly fucking legendary. Even an idiot could see Moron was here to save them, not to make things worse. Oh my god, it's literally too funny. And they realized as the sword drew closer, he'd even brought the Beidou immortal Chu Wanning, who'd been missing for ages. Chu Zongsha! The cries went up immediately. It was the creator of the Sigil of the Returning Billows, the foremost Zongsha in all the land. The cultivators of Taobao Estate were frantic with excitement. Like their leader, they feared death more than anyone. We're saved! We're saved! They yelled, jumping and waving their hands. Moron rode the wind, robes rippling beneath his fitted leather armor. He dropped down before the Xuanwu barrier, landing nimbly on a wave. Jianggui, 10,000 coffins, he bellowed. Thousands of willow vines erupted from the earth and wrapped around all those injured and struggling under the crush of the water. Among them Yo Wangshi, Third Lady's son, and a grim-faced Jiang Shi, and whipped them backward, out of danger. Moron turned and barked orders. I need reinforcements to get their asses up here. Where are the fresh defense cultivators? As his eyes raked over Jiang Shi, anger darkened his voice. How did a healer Zongsha end up on the front lines? Are you looking to die? The defense cultivators, shirking their duty, turned ashen with embarrassment. A bright beam shot from Tishan Jun's palm and rippled through the barrier. Once we've taken care of this little leak here, he growled, baring his teeth, this venerable one will find every last one of you chicken shit bastards and personally crush your skulls. The crowd exchanged terrified glances. I said, get your asses to the front. Maybe Tishan Jun was just that terrifying. Or maybe these cultivators who so treasured their own lives had finally gotten their priorities straight. Even the wretched remnants of Jiangdong Hall stepped forward. Almost the entire group came to stand behind Tishan Jun and raised their palms to the Xuanwu barrier. The flickering barrier immediately began to glow with a steady light once more. With the combined strength of the crowd and the mightiest cultivator in the mortal realm, the barrier's light became so brilliant they were blinded. A monstrous wave rushed toward them, like a waterspout sweeping up the sea. The most stout-hearted cultivators had already fallen back, their more cowardly fellows swallowed nervously, knees quaking. Nobody move a muscle, Tishan Jun warned, or this venerable one will make sure you never see another sunrise. That's the end of the chapter. And, it's gonna get real embarrassing for me really quick if he's now literally the best of both worlds in the same person. It's not gonna look good for me. We're gonna be doing some bonding, probably. He can't be Tishan Jun in all the right scenarios and Moron in all the right scenarios. I can't. Now, granted, it's what I fucking deserve at volume 10 of this series, but like I can't entertain the possibility. I'll get demonetized and banned. We're on page 175. We're on page 175 for chapter 309, which is called Moron never left. There's been a series of deeply fucking rude chapter titles in this series. Out of 308, there's been a few that have been just fucking rude. And, this might be the worst one. This might be the fucking meanest. I hate her. Hate. Loathe entirely. Tishan Jun's statement was neither a joke nor threat. What did I just fucking say to you, meat bun? He was merely stating the truth. No one dared step back. They braced themselves and poured more spiritual energy into the spell. Those who were too afraid to watch closed their eyes. The crest of the wave was 1,000 yards away, then 100. It rushed, closer, closer still. There was a thunderous crash as the water beat at the barrier with a sound like a million hammers striking at once. The very sun and moon seemed to tremble in the firmament. Veins protruded on the backs of Tishan Jun's well-proportioned hands as his teeth flashed in grimace. How did I forget that was absolutely a thing whenever Moron would do anything? There were consistent callbacks and reminders to the fact that Moron is fuck-ass beautiful. We did not get, it wasn't in the same way when describing the Tishan Jun of old. Behind him, Chu Wanning had reached the boundary of the space-time gate of life and death, where the older Shuimeng was toiling to maintain the sigil of the returning billows. Chu Wanning laid a hand on his disciple's shoulder. When Shuimeng turned toward him, his expression was steady. Though crow's feet creased the corners of his eyes, when he looked at Chu Wanning, his gaze was as clear as it had been in his youth. Shizun. Chu Wanning met his eyes. I'm here. Juga materialized in a jade-green flash. Chu Wanning rose on the wind, cords ringing from the chin. The margins of the space-time gate shrank back from the corners of the earth with a startling alacrity. Everyone, retreat, Chu Wanning called to the crowd, his fingers never stilling on the strings. Get behind me. Chu Wanning didn't need to repeat himself, but this time most of the cultivators, even the most terrified among them, refrained from jostling for position. Some supported their injured comrades, others carried people who'd been complete strangers moments ago. Slowly, they made their way toward the gate. The space-time gate was anchored near Kunlun Mountain. When the crowd reached the mountain path, many could walk no further. They stood watching Chu Wanning's figure atop the pristine snow crowning the peak, his sleeves fluttering as the melody flowed without cease. Who said the point of cultivation was to live forever, to amass enough power to annihilate heaven and earth? Some people, even if their lives were eternal, would never amount to more than a lump of unfeeling stone. Others, though they only flitted through the mortal realm, left a trail of blooming flowers in their wake. Was that not an immortal before the space-time gate, using his body of flesh and blood, the sublime melody from his fingertips, to save this world of red dust? That in itself was the evidence of his immortality. It's page 176. I don't have time to cry about it. I don't. I want to. I don't have time. We don't have time to cry about that. There's a reason we have book chats. Something light and airy, snow-like, drifted from the sky onto his shoulders. A shocked gasp of recognition rose from the crowd. Huh? That's not snow. In the most distant reaches of the East Sea, the Flame Emperor's sacred tree had recognized a kindred spiritual energy. Not tree recognizing tree. The flowers of the ancient high tongue tree from the dawn of the universe had a unique and exquisite fragrance. Its glistening petals floated across the mortal realm like flurries of snow from the edge of the world. The high tongue petals took to the air again. Those luxuriant, pale pink petals sent the clouds scattering as they drifted toward the edges of the space-time gate like a trail of meteors, helping stitch the rift back together. Watching the dancing flowers, many of the cultivators suddenly remembered a legend. The last time the world nearly met its end, the god Shenong had planted the Flame Emperor's sacred tree and saved the ailing mortal realm. After millennia, Fuxi had left the earth, Nuwa had sunk into eternal repose, and the Flame Emperor was lost to the ages. But his sacred tree yet remained. It was an aged, imperfect fragment, but it still had the power to hold up the heavens over the world. Tishan Jun cast a glance at the shrinking rift, then at the people behind him. Go! Get out of here while the space-time gate's still open. To his shock, the crowd didn't stampede toward the gate. Some declared they could keep going, some shouted they wanted to fight till the end. After all, who didn't have a drop of hero's blood in their veins? Even if it had been drowned by time's passage and life's hardships, there might still come a day when it would strain to burst forth. Okay. Um, 177. The last time I wrote down a page number, it was 176. Tishan Jun barked an angry laugh. Is it opposite day today? Are you trying to enrage this venerable one? Get the hell out. Only then did the stragglers begin to stream through the gate, one by one. A quavering voice called out from the crowd, Your Majesty, what about you? Tishan Jun blinked, slowly turning toward that familiar voice. A stooped old man gazed at him through the spray of water. Lu Gong. Was he seeing things? There was a sorrow and compassion in the old man's eyes that Tishan Jun couldn't describe. Perhaps this was how a father would look at his son. It was a preposterous idea. Never in a million years would the old servant dare to see the murderous Emperor Tishan Jun as a son. But at that moment, Tishan Jun remembered old Lu had lost a son in the fighting just before he'd come into his employ. If his son hadn't died, he and Tishan Jun would probably be around the same age. Tishan Jun closed his eyes. My abilities are needed here, so this venerable one will naturally be the last to leave. No need to worry. Your Majesty. Go on. Tishan Jun looked away from the old man. Go to the other world. Old Lu was silent. Your son might still be alive there. Suddenly, Tishan Jun flashed him a grin, all sharp canines and deep dimples. Get your ass out of here, old Lu. Find him and keep him company. A bitch is really trying it. She's really trying it. Oh. Also, I might be remembering this incorrectly, but didn't she used to hang on, let me find the the actual, yeah, didn't Didn't she used to reference Tishan Jun's sharp canines, but Moron's deep dimples? Am I just making that up because I'm fucking beside myself right now? Or am I remembering that correctly and she just used both of those to describe the same person? Yeah, I'm correct? Sure. Sure. As the opening of the space-time gate narrowed, the number of people supporting the Xuanwu barrier dwindled as well. With each cultivator that withdrew, Tishan Jun's contribution to the barrier increased correspondingly. As the next enormous wave began to gather on the horizon, less than 100 people remained. Tishan Jun narrowed his eyes. "Everyone, stop what you're doing and go through the space-time gate," he ordered sharply. By now, the rift in space-time was only as wide as an ordinary gate. Eyes on the oncoming wave, the remaining cultivators reluctantly stepped back. One by one, they slipped through the portal to another world, returning to the snowy slopes of Kunlun Mountain. But this wave was faster than the ones before. Many cultivators were still attempting to cross as it slammed into the Xuanwu barrier. Tishan Jun was single-handedly supporting the spell, a monumental task even for him. He groaned, his features contorting in pain. The wave crashed over the barrier with the churning violence of a cyclone, as if mythical leviathans and dragons might come dancing through its spray. The earth and her mountains quaked with the impact. "Mozongsha," someone mumbled, looking back from the threshold of the space-time gate. Tishan Jun's temper flared. "Who the fuck is Mozongsha?" he roared. "Are you done yet? Get the fuck out of here!" The poor cultivator didn't know what he'd said to anger him. Meekly lowering his head, he stepped through the space-time gate without another word. The rest of the group followed. The rift was smaller now, only as big as a doorway. The Xuanwu barrier strained against the water's pressure, nearing its limits. Tishan Jun glanced behind him. A dozen or so cultivators still hadn't left. He cursed under his breath. His mangled hands never moved from the barrier's surface, veins bulging from their backs. It was too much to bear. He might have been the strongest man in the mortal realm, but he was, in the end, only one man. How could he stand in the way of primordial chaos itself? Several sharp cracking noises cut through the air. "The barrier is about to shatter!" Tishan Jun stood before the colossal wall of water. Without turning, he roared, "I said get the fuck out of here!" Black blood seeped from between his teeth. Lowering his inky lashes, he glanced down at his left foot. It was slowly disintegrating, crumbling to ash. He snorted. The sight didn't frighten him in the slightest. He was a revenant made by Shimei. Now that Shimei was dead, his body wouldn't last long. Very soon it would return to dust. If he could challenge fate one more time before it was all over, that would be enough. Except we'd be panicking right now. Except we know there's a fucking body around here, and it's fucking Moron's. There's a body here somewhere, and Chuaning knows where it is. So we're not panicking. We're holding hands, but like I said in the previous stream, I consider us to be perpetually holding hands for the rest of this series. That's simply how that goes. We're holding hands, but we're not panicking. He looked over his shoulder. Chuaning's silhouette was a blur on the other side of the space-time gate. The rift was still shrinking. The last handful of people were squeezing through. Beside Tishan Jun and Chuaning, only the past lifetimes Shuimeng and the Mei twins stood apart. The members of Xishang Peak started forward. "Young master," they called out, distraught. Shuimeng cleared his throat and pointed at the younger version of himself. "He's your young master, not me." The younger Shuimeng stared at him, dumbstruck. "There's no room for two tigers on one mountain. How could there be two Shuimengs in a single universe? It would be a disaster." Shuimeng laughed, the corners of his eyes crinkling. "I never belonged to your world. I'd just feel awkward if you made me stay. You gave me the chance to fight for both these worlds one last time. I couldn't wish for anything more." But I'm tired. I've been so tired for so long. It's time for me to rest. He turned away from the crowd and walked back through the gate toward the Xuanwu barrier, spiderwebbed with fractures from the waves. When he reached Tishan Jun's side, he considered him with a complicated expression. His mouth opened, but in the end, he couldn't get the words out. Young Master! Young Master Shui! The cultivators of Xisheng Peak cried out from the other side of the space-time gate, to no avail. Even in that other world, his father and mother were gone. Besides, he'd never belonged in that universe anyway. He wouldn't know where to go, or what to do, if he were made to live there. Shui Meng sighed and raised a hand to rub at the back of his neck, where the veins pulsed and throbbed. Suddenly, he broke into a grin. It was inevitable, with age, that the world would sometimes spin before one's eyes, that one's mind would fog over with memory. But growing old had its perks, too. When the world spun, it never went dark. Often he saw Shui Jingyang's silhouette, or Madame Wang's smile. Sometimes he even saw... Sometimes he even saw 3 gangly youngsters flocking to a white-robed cultivator and calling Shizun, Shizun. These were all things that belonged to him alone. No one could take them away. Greeting old friends, half but ghosts, Shui Meng raised his voice in song, casting the last of his cares to the wind. Before anyone could react, he stepped through the barrier. As though throwing himself into the arms of those people he'd cherished for a lifetime, he dove into the white-capped sea. He belonged to this world. No matter how hopeless and broken it was, he wanted to return to it. He felt hardly any pain. It was like falling into a drunken slumber. I'd give what remains of my life to the god of dreams, if only to call you back, cup after cup. What a relief. He'd toiled and suffered for more than a dozen long years. Now he, Shui Ziming, was free at last. For a moment, the crowd was silent. Xisheng Peak's disciples sank to their knees, overcome with sorrow. The group from Tashui Palace seemed to come to a realization. They turned, stricken, toward the Mei brothers. Da Xisheng, come over here, please. Don't stay on that side. Come back with us, both of you. Please come back. You can't be we won't be coming back. Mei Hunshui flashed a brilliant smile and waved at everyone on the other side of the gate. 1 Mei Hunshui is enough to bring half the cultivation realm's beauties to ruin. 2 of me in the world would be nothing but trouble. Out of kindness to the ladies, I'll be taking my leave, my friends. Until our paths cross again. Mei Hunshui stood beside his brother, gazing upon the nostalgic sight of Kunlun Mountain's white mantle of snow and the magnificent buildings of Tashui Palace through the rift. He bowed deeply to his sect leader, Ming Yulo, who died years ago in his own timeline. Today, the disciple of Mei Hunshui bids his sect farewell. The twins looked relaxed, but everyone could tell their minds were made up. Ming Yulo closed her eyes, her sigh floating away on the breeze. The twins leaned against the Xuanwu barrier, watching the very last defense cultivators squeeze through the crevice that was all that was left of the space-time gate. The younger brother grinned. The elder nodded. They'd discharged all their responsibilities. Not once had they left the kindness and friendship of others unrepaid. Not once had they let down their world. They faced the maelstrom with an overwhelming sense of peace. Closing their eyes, they leapt into that vast ocean. A wave crashed over them, and they vanished like plum blossom petals on the water. Everyone had either passed through the space-time gate or cast themselves into the frigid, boundless sea. The Qin's melody abruptly came to a halt. Chu Wanning looked up as Zhuge disappeared in a flash of golden light. You could make an argument for borrowed time for all three of them. Hadn't really thought of that until just now, but you could. He turned his back on the crowd, white robes rippling against the snow of Kunlun Mountain. Everyone watched him, unsure what he would do. "This small rip is all that remains," said Chu Wanning. He tilted his face slightly, the wind billowing through his soft sleeves and the black hair framing his face. "After I go, please close it up to keep this world safe." After a stunned silence, someone cried out from the crowd, "Zongsha! Chu Zongsha!" Shuimeng felt all the hair stand up on the back of his neck. Lurching forward, he rushed toward Chu Wanning. "Shizhen! Shizhen!" But the snow was slippery. He stumbled and fell. A pair of glistening black eyes, like those of a tiny cub, gazed up at Chu Wanning in mounting horror. "Shizhen!" Chu Wanning looked over his shoulder at Shuimeng. His pitch-dark eyes were far away. "I'm sorry," he said at last. "Sorry for what?" Shuimeng's pupils contracted to pinpricks. It felt like someone had drilled his head open and dumped ice into his skull. What was his Shizhen sorry for? For his relationship with Moron? For keeping Shuimeng in the dark? Or was it because... Shuimeng's throat bobbed as he swallowed hard. Was it because... "No, don't go!" Shuimeng fell apart, wailing as he knelt upon the pure white snow. "Don't go! Why do you all do this? Why do all of you have to leave me behind? Why must I be the only one left?" Tears streamed down his begrimed, blood-splattered face, leaving pale streaks. Those piteous sobs were raw, as though torn bloody from his throat, as though they rent his flesh, his heart, his lungs. "Don't abandon me. Come back, all of you, come back to me." He howled like a beast, slumped and prostrating in the snow, flurries drifting soundlessly around him. Those soft flakes seemed to crush him, as if he'd never stand again. "I'm begging. Please come back." This is in italics, so unsaid. Haven't I lost everything? My dad, my mom, my brother, my friend, even Longcheng is shattered. So please come back. Don't take away the last thing I have. Shizhen, please. But he didn't know. He couldn't know that Chu Wanning was already dead. In his life, his strength had led people to raise him up on a holy altar. The burdens he'd shouldered were so heavy they'd suffocated him beneath their weight. He'd watched his beloved close his eyes forever in his arms. He'd ripped his lover to pieces with his own hands. He'd been forced to draw his sword again and again against the man he'd loved and lost. Any one of these things was enough to hollow out his heart, yet he'd suffered them all. He couldn't turn back. This is also in italics. I've done everything, so the rest of you can live. So now, could you let me be selfish for once? Let me die with him. Chu Wanning strode through the space-time gate. His foot left snowy Kunlun on the cusp of dawn and stepped down into that broken, drowned world. Here, heaven and earth were devoid of color. What had once been ripples of mountains and rivers was a blank expanse of water. There was no sun or moon, no dusk or dawn. Only one person remained. White robes trailing behind him, Chu Wanning walked over to Tishan Jun and embraced him from behind. He raised elegant fingers to cover the back of Tishan Jun's mutilated hand. Tishan Jun whipped around in shock. Why did you? Chu Wanning laughed, phoenix eyes soft beneath his lashes. Don't you remember what I said? Silence. Hell is too cold. I'm coming to the grave with you. A warm body embraced an ice-cold corpse. Tishan Jun was disintegrating. His left leg was almost completely gone. Expression terribly conflicted, he pressed his lips together and turned his face away. You're so annoying. Who said this venerable one wanted you here? But his heart felt like it would explode, welling with warmth and tenderness. He was a corpse and nothing more, but he suddenly felt like he was burning up. A moment later, Tishan Jun jerked around. Right. Actually, there's something this venerable one should tell you. What is it? Tishan Jun looked up. He took a weary breath, then asked, resolute, Before this venerable one tells you, will you tell me the truth? Chu Wanning watched him, waiting for him to continue. Tishan Jun blurted out, Do you really hate this version of me? Is it only Mozongsha, the one who died in your arms, who you can't bear to give up? The rims of his eyes had gone red with humiliation. If the world hadn't been ending, he'd never have asked such a mortifying question. Speaking the words out loud was so shameful, his hands balled into fists, or tried to. He realized his left fingers were slowly starting to disintegrate as well. A long moment passed in silence. Tishan Jun's blazing heart gradually cooled and crumbled, as if the throbbing organ in his chest had been pinched into dust. Forget it, Tishan Jun said at last, turning away. This venerable one already knows the answer. It's fine. At any rate, this venerable one also... A pair of warm hands cupped his cheeks. As Chu Wanning gazed at his destroyed features, at his face that was once handsome, now no longer, his eyes shone with more sincerity and passion than Tishan Jun had ever seen. Are you stupid? Tishan Jun blinked. They're both you. Chu Wanning wrapped his arms around him. The Xuanwu barrier flickered, then winked out. Darkness was all that was left in the world. A final wave rushed toward them, rearing triumphantly from the black waters. Its roar seemed to mock their human frailty. Who were these mortals to think they could vie with fate? I told him the same thing, said Chu Wanning. He embraced his disappearing lover as the flood rushed toward them. On the edge of the apocalypse, his eyes were serene. It doesn't matter if it's Mozongsha or Tishan Jun. You're both you. Tishan Jun's arms had eroded completely now. His chest began to disintegrate. Black eyes met black eyes. I'll always belong to you, said Chu Wanning. No regrets. Ever. Tishan Jun stiffened. He squeezed his eyes shut, wetness gathering beneath his long lashes. At long last he dropped his ice-cold mask, his features slowly relaxing. He wrapped his remaining arm around Chu Wanning, pressing his beloved to his chest. Leaning down, he kissed Chu Wanning's hair, then nuzzled his cheek against Chu Wanning's forehead. You're right, Tishan Jun sighed. I really am stupid. Wanning, I'm sorry, he muttered. It's not like he was dumb. All those years of entangled love and hatred, those lifetimes of debts and grudges, fell away with a single sigh. Tishan Jun's voice was a murmur at his ear, mellow and slow and filled with a rare tranquility. All right. There isn't much time left. I have to tell you a secret. What secret? Tishan Jun lowered his lashes. It's about Mozongsha. Chu Waning's eyes flew wide. Actually, I could tell from the moment his heart fused with mine. Tishan Jun hesitated. Mozongsha's souls are inside me. Chu Waning froze. Then his head whipped up. He stared at Tishan Jun's smiling face in disbelief. His fragmented souls have been in my body all along. But I was too stubborn. Even if I'm just a corpse and a wisp of cognizant soul, I wanted to be in charge. I wasn't willing to let his souls merge with mine. But seeing as it's come to this, it would be unfair if I was the only one who got to tell you how I feel. Chu Waning looked at him in stunned silence. Waning. Tishan Jun closed his eyes. His faint smile subsided and turned solemn. Don't be sad. He's been here all along. Beneath Chu Waning's astonished stare, Tishan Jun opened his eyes again. They were the exact same pair of eyes. Yet somehow, they no longer seemed so dark they gleamed purple. Instead, they were clear and gentle. Moron. Another wave crashed down on the Xuanwu barrier, which finally splintered completely. In the rolling surf, Moron didn't say a word. He gathered Chu Waning tightly into his arms, plunging with him into the deluge. As translucent bubbles shimmied up through the green sea, Moron opened his eyes, filled with affection as deep as the fathomless waters. His lips opened and closed as he mouthed soundlessly to Chu Waning, Shizun, don't worry. It's me. I've been with you all along. And I won't be leaving. So, go back, okay? Don't stay here. Trust me, I'll be fine. I'll do everything in my power to see you again. To be by your side. I'll be waiting for you in another world. At last, he mouthed the incantation to summon Jingwei. The vine wrapped around Chu Waning, head to toe, and carried him toward the last tiny gap in the space-time gate. Moron. Moron. What do you mean? You asshole, what do you mean? Moron bobbed in the water, smiling peacefully. Even his face had started to disintegrate along with his ruined body. Once, those features had been animated by madness and sweetness, sincerity and savagery alike. Now his smile crumbled, vanishing bit by bit, leaving the world forever. Italicized. Go back, Waning. You have to believe me. I'll be fine. I'll be by your side always. Until the end of time. that's the end of the chapter. And we're late for that break. And this is a good time to take it. I'll be back in a few minutes. Feel free to hang out in the Gaywatch break room while I'm gone. Give the stream a like if you're feeling an emotion. And when we come back, we'll be on page 191 for chapter 310, which is called The Very Last Card. I'll be back in a few minutes. Welcome back to Erha. You know, the difficult thing about mysteries, murder mysteries, anything, crime mysteries, anything that, can be classified capital M mystery, is that you can't just come up with one solution when you're writing it. You have to typically come up with at least a few, if not several. Because as things twist and develop and you're leading people down all of these incorrect conclusions until you finally arrive at the right one, all of those incorrect conclusions are like a possibility for the ending. And they need to be just as compelling of an idea as the ending, but then the actual ending has to be more like the best possible choice between the whodunits, between the solution to the mystery, so that way you're pinging the reader back and forth between all of these really captivating or like great solutions before you finally unveil the biggest, most correct one for this story, right? That's the goal with mysteries. That's one of the reasons why they're so fuck-ass difficult. Who can say why that came to mind over the break? But that's what I was thinking about. We're on page 191 for chapter 310, which is called The Very Last Card. And I'm furious again because I caught the first line. There was light. I was so furious at the first line that I didn't see the second one. I fucking hate this bitch. It's on site with this woman. There was light. When Moron opened his eyes, he found himself lying beneath mulberry-colored clouds. He blinked a few times, turning his head experimentally, then sat up. It wasn't the sky above him, after all. Rather, he'd awoken in a palace made entirely of amethyst. It was so enormous, each brick the size of a carriage, that he'd mistaken the far-off ceiling for clouds. A tall man stood a little distance away, looking out a window. He wore a robe made of some material Moron didn't recognize. His feet were bare, and he idly swirled an amber liquid in a cup fashioned from luminous crystal. Beyond the window was a tree lush with scarlet blossoms, their pistils dusted with silver. These strange robes and stranger flowers weren't of the mortal realm. Moron was certain no such amethyst palace existed in the world of the living. "Where am I?" he asked. The man's fingers twitched, and he turned a fraction toward Moron. His face was backlit by the brightness of the window, difficult to see. You certainly are calm, my hero. Moron blinked. The man drained his cup, then placed it on the windowsill and walked toward Moron. Now Moron got a better look at his face. This man bore some resemblance to Gochen the Exalted. His lips were very thin, and a blood-red mark shaped like a spider crouched under one eye. I'm the second lord of the demon realm. The man spoke slowly, though he had an impatient air about him. He watched Moron's face, scrutinizing his reaction. You are in my palace. Moron took a moment to answer. If you didn't say so, I would have assumed you were Lord Yunlo, he said eventually. The man chuckled. You were so sure you died? No, said Moron, meeting his gaze. It didn't feel like I was dead, but it also didn't feel like I was alive. The demon lord's grin widened. That's correct. He reached out a hand gloved in black dragon skin. His fingertip passed through Moron's chest without any resistance. Moron felt no pain. Indeed, you are not alive, said the demon lord. You are merely a bundle of gathered souls. Moron didn't respond. My ancestors decreed the butterfly-boned beauty feasts would never return to the demon realm unless they defied the gods and learned Fushi's forbidden techniques, the demon lord remarked languidly. From the Zhenlong chess formation to the space-time gate of life and death, you've mastered them all, my hero. But I never wanted to, Moron said glumly. That was why Binan, he was nothing more than a god-forsaken half-breed mutt. The demon lord's eyes flashed with contempt. He promised never to harm his own kin. But he broke that promise. Do you mean Song Chutong? No, replied the demon lord. Moron's reflection was crisp in his glittering ruby eyes. He reached out, fingers ghosting over Moron's incorporeal cheek. You know whom I mean. When Moron said nothing, the demon lord continued. You knew it from the moment the gate to the demon realm opened. His gaze was sharp as a finely honed knife. Otherwise, you wouldn't have said all that to your little cultivator. In your heart, you already know the truth. Moron lowered his lashes in silence. The demon lord slowly straightened. His tall figure cast an oddly dense shadow on the floor. Moe Yu. There's a special type of butterfly-boned beauty feast. They don't cry golden tears, nor do they possess any demonic aura. If they aren't aware of their ancestry, even the spirit of Mount Huang wouldn't recognize them despite the phoenix's pact with the butterfly-boned clan. Many die without any knowledge of their true heritage. So what? The demon lord laughed. So what? These people can command the potent spiritual power of the ancient demon race, like the jade-hearted lord Song Xingyi from centuries ago. A rich purple light sparked at his fingertips. When he pointed at Moron, the glow floated into Moron's chest. A powerful energy surged through him. The demon lord smiled. Behold, you can absorb the energy of my race. Moron didn't respond. I was speaking of you, said the demon lord. You are a special butterfly-boned beauty feast, just like Song Xingyi. You simply had no idea. And neither did Hua Binan. Oh, I I will I try to regain the power of speech? Have we checked on Liv? Liv, are you okay? Is Liv okay? She's the one, in case you didn't know, Liv, this is one of, I think this was like the last of Liv's crazy fuck ass theories that had yet to be proven or some shit. I can't believe. I can't believe that just happened. I need a moment. Oh my God. Yeah, and Liv didn't even think she was right. It was you, yeah, you weren't like, you were just like, probably. No, I remember. Liv wins. She wins. Liv wins Erha. If there is any power vested in me, I dub thee Liv winner of Erha. I can't believe I will never I have to keep reading because that's what I have to do right now. But like, one, you are the goddess queen winner of Erha. Congratulations. And two, you are never allowed to theorize anything in the chat ever again. You simply can't. You have officially joined the ranks of the wife in not being able to theorize at me. I am going to avoid any theory you ever have ever again. Oh my God. We have to keep going. At this, Moron looked up. The chat's calling her Liv Stradamus, and that is officially your name also, by the way. I dub thee. Clasping his hands behind his back, the demon lord returned his gaze to the falling petals outside. It's a true pity. He vowed never to harm any of his clansmen, to protect all the butterfly bone beauty feasts he could. Yet you endured a lifetime of his abuse. Moron rose to his feet. He wasn't in the mood to listen to this drivel. So what if he'd been abused or exploited? Oh, honey, that was all in the past. There was only one thing he cared about now. Can I go back? Back where? The demon lord turned to pin him with a stare. The mortal realm. Yeah, the mortal realm. What's so appealing about the mortal realm? A lot of silly ants. You have talent and personality, and you're a member of my race, the demon lord said matter-of-factly. It's precisely because you're a demon that I was able to collect your souls and summon you to this palace. Remain here and you'll live 10,000 years. The abilities you've demonstrated will serve the demon race well. Yeah, that sounds great. Unfortunately, I don't see any Shizuns around here. The demon realm severely lacking in a Shizun who's really like bent over and waiting. I don't see any of them around here, so unfortunately, I don't think Moron's gonna want to hang around. Moron had to laugh. Sorry, but I've only ever had other people serving me. I've never served anyone else. Rockstar. The demon lord's unsmiling scarlet eyes fixed on him in silent reproof. Well, I suppose there is one exception, Moron amended. I'm willing to serve him. A snort. You'll serve a hunk of wood. He is not a hunk of wood. I was being polite when I called him your little cultivator. The demon lord rolled his eyes. He's no god, just a stupid seedling planted by Shanong. Seeing Moron's expression grow thunderous, the demon lord tactfully left it at that. He turned to face Moron, leaning his narrow waist against the windowsill. Are you dense or something? I called him dumb all the livelong day in the early volumes. And now it's like the story calls him dumb and I'm ready to throw hands. Oh, it's my own character development. All right. Without waiting for a response, he continued more seriously. You have to understand, though, if you really intend to go back, you will not receive any of the demon race's benefits. You'll live a few decades, a century at most. At this, the tension finally bled out of Moron's shoulders. He laughed. Really? That long? The demon lord stared. In the mortal realm, that's practically forever. Humans are no more than ants. The demon lord seemed both baffled and annoyed. What can they accomplish in a few decades, or even a century? You ripped open the space-time gate of life and death and mastered the Genlong chess formation. Old Fushi's probably throwing a fit up in heaven right now. Yet with all your gifts, you'd rather wallow in the mud like a pig. The longer he spoke, the angrier the demon lord became. Idiot. It's not like he was dumb. It's not like he was dumb. The dumb husky. The dumb husky. The dumb husky. And his white catches in. The final form of the dumb husky. Okay, all right. Okay. This is why he's done. Can't blow out the mic. Moron's lowered lashes were trembling. The demon lord first thought it was from fury, but he soon realized Moron was holding back laughter. He was fully speechless. At last, Moron looked up. How'd you know? He asked, grinning brightly. In the mortal realm, people are always calling me an idiot. I'm so angry. I'm incandescent with rage. Flames on the side of my face. Breathing, seething. The demon lord pressed his fingers to his brow as if battling a headache. He muttered dolefully, I can't believe such an embarrassing demon exists. I never thought of myself as a demon, said Moron. The first time the idea even occurred to me was when the gate opened. The demon lord glared at him. Moron's smile faded. He looked at the demon lord solemnly. At any rate, I have to thank you for protecting my souls. I have an eye for talent. Moron shook his head. There was nothing more to say. Those eyes that had stirred the hearts of so many now looked up at the demon lord, frank and sincere. I'm sorry, he said, but I have to go back to the mortal realm. There was a long, uncomfortable silence. Why? The demon lord asked stiffly. Give me a reason. Because I told him I would, Moron replied. I promised him I'd find my way back to his side. That's a scene break. The snow had ceased to fall at Kunlun Tashway Palace, and the rift in space-time had stitched itself closed. The floodwaters and destruction of the other world might as well have been an absurd nightmare. A rosy sunrise glimmered through the clouds, bathing the world in quiet majesty. Chu Zongsha! 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 Chu Waning's awareness slowly returned. Someone seemed to be calling out to him. He opened his eyes. At first there was only emptiness. All the dust and smoke of 2 lifetimes seemed to have settled. Was he back at Xisheng Peak, awakened by some noisy disciples on a winter afternoon? Or was this the cold, austere Wushan Palace, with Lu Gong heaving a sigh at his bedside, calling him back to the world of the living? His vision slowly gained focus. He glanced at the cultivators clustered around him. The snow was fresh, and night was lifting around him, dawn's light edging the clouds in pinkish hues. Chu Waning's eyes drifted half-closed. Moron, he mumbled hoarsely. Perhaps his love for that man was rooted too deeply in his heart. As if answering his longing, several beams of warm gold light shot from the thin seam where the space-time gate had been. They streaked across the blushing sky and soared into the distance. What was that? Chu Waning's eyes flew open. Deaf to the calls of those around him, he stared after those beams of light. What could they be? His extinguished hopes, reignited by the strange light, flared back to life. He struggled to his feet, ignoring everyone's attempts to help. Without a word, he stumbled in the direction of those golden lights. Several worried voices called after him, Chu Zongsha! Everyone knew now. Mo Weiyu wasn't the criminal he'd been made out to be. Yet the cost of this knowledge had been too high. Even if his name was cleared after his death, what difference would it make? But Moron had never cared what others thought of him. He knew better than anyone whether he was innocent or guilty, insane or foolish. In this, Chu Waning was the same. They only wanted to live without regrets. No more. Shizun! Shuimeng stared after him. But he'd only taken a few steps through the snow when he heard a commotion behind him. Sect leader, one of Gu Yue's disciples, was shouting frantically. Sect leader, what's wrong? Shuimeng whipped around. Shoving his way through the crowd, he saw that Zhang Shi had collapsed on the bright snow, blood pooling beneath his body. "What's going on?" a Guyue elder bellowed. "Wasn't he fine just a moment ago? How did this happen?" A disciple pointed fearfully at a grisly wound on Zhang Shi's abdomen. I think the sect leader was stabbed by something in the flood, but he didn't want to distract anyone, so he never said anything." Shui Meng's gonna have exactly 2 people on this planet? Okay, 4. 4. He'll have 4 people on this planet. But the thing is, he used to have more. A coppery scent hung in the air. Dawn was breaking over a world that had been saved. In this universe where peace had been secured, Zhang Shi had finally collapsed from his injuries. "Quick, healers! What are you standing there for? Save him!" Stricken, Shui Meng's steps faltered. He was still holding Shu Chuang, Zhang Shi's sword, which Zhang Shi had forced on him. He glanced over his shoulder where Chu Wanning was retreating into the distance. Before he could take a step in either direction, his legs seemed to give out. He sank to his knees, sobbing in the snow. Where in this vast world could he still take refuge from the turbulence of love and hatred, of passion and vengeance? As he once again raised his head in the mortal realm, he discovered that no one remained by his side. Those proud and carefree days of his youth had vanished like dust in the wake of a galloping horse, never to return. On that winding snow-covered mountain path, Chu Wanning watched those beams of red light fly toward the horizon, disappearing into the distant mountains. "Trust me. I'll do everything in my power to see you again. I'll be waiting for you in another world." He shuddered. Chu Wanning didn't dare let the idea settle in his mind. He refused to indulge such wild optimism without seeing the truth with his own eyes. Such is existing in a meat bun universe. The sun's rays pierced the abyssal darkness, casting off yesterday's frigid night. Countless golden streamers seemed to fall upon the jagged, meandering mountain trail. Dawn bathed everyone in its warm red glow, ushering in days of peace now that the calamity had passed. Chu Wanning gazed toward the east and brandished a talisman between his fingers. Brilliant gold flared in his mind. "Rising dragon, come." With a shrill gust of wind, his dragon of the candle burst from the air. The beast's massive form uncoiled in the snow with a sound like a tolling bell. "Has this crisis been averted?" it asked brightly, apparently pleased to find itself in a more peaceful world. "The fighting's over." The dragon leapt into the air in delight. After completing a loop, it reluctantly settled down again. Addressing Chu Wanning in its usual waggish tone. "Chu Wanning, why are you always alone?" "Will you see?" Chu Wanning stood calmly in the chill wind, snowflakes clinging to his long lashes. Moron's last words to him were still ringing in his ears. His heart pounded like a drum. After a long moment, he looked up at the curled-up dragon silhouetted by the dawn light. "I want you to take me somewhere." "Where?" Chu Wanning leapt onto the dragon's back, and the enormous creature took to the air. Chu Wanning looked down at the snowy expanse, land slivered with frost spread below his feet. The rising sun climbed higher, inch by inch, growing ever brighter. At last, in the full-bodied morning light, he said to the dragon, "Nanping Mountain. I need to see him." The dragon's whiskers twitched. For once, it suppressed the urge to tease Chu Wanning. The creature already knew where its master wanted to go and whom he wanted to see. It let out a quavering roar as they soared toward the heavens, and Chu Wanning turned to take a final glance at the majestic landscape below. Voluminous clouds drifted through the endless sky. He was leaving snow-capped Kunlun behind to chase after those red-gold beams, flying toward the distant ends of the Jianghu, where that gentle rain would first fall. Moron had promised he'd come back, so he believed him. He was going to the place they'd last parted ways, to meet once more. Absolutely the fuck not. They can't do that. They can't do that. We can't do that for the reunion. We're not. Do you think those gold lights were his souls returning to this world? Weaving through clouds, the dragon muttered, "How am I supposed to know?" Do you think his souls will go back into his body? I guess, the dragon hazarded. Very soon they arrived at Nanping Mountain. Chu Wanning urged the dragon down just outside a bamboo grove deep in the mountain forest. He moved without doubt or hesitation, seemingly certain as to where those lights had gone. Is he here? Asked the dragon. Chu Wanning didn't answer. He jumped down from the dragon's back. I left Moron's body safeguarded here. Chu Wanning's fingers trembled uncontrollably. It felt as if a massive boulder on his chest was stopping his breath. If it's possible for his souls to return, He wanted to say they'll definitely be here, but he found himself unable to finish the thought. What if they weren't? He wanted to leave himself room for hope. He didn't want to speak with too much certainty. The paper dragon had never been the most tactful. But what if he didn't come back? It said, shaking its whiskered head. What if those beams of light scattered before they made it here? What if... Chu Wanning whirled. He glared at the dragon with red-rimmed eyes. Then I'll burn you as a burial offering to him. Ah, yeah, so scary. With a final grumble, the creature's massive bulk vanished in a flash of gold as it shrank itself back to the size of a palm. Perching on Chu Wanning's shoulder, the tiny dragon nudged its master's cheek with its head, as if the dragon wasn't familiar with Chu Wanning's personality. It knew he would never really set it on fire. The dragon exhaled wearily. By the look on your face, it seems like you'd be more interested in being the burial offering yourself. It scratched at the back of Chu Wanning's head with its tail. What are you doing? I was worried you'd pass out if I didn't keep you awake. The dragon sighed and bopped Chu Wanning with its tail. You look terrible. Chu Wanning only glared. That's it. You look like someone about to gamble his life savings on one final wager. No retort came to Chu Wanning's lips. He merely closed his eyes. The little dragon wasn't wrong. This concerned his disciple of 2 lifetimes, his lover across 2 universes. The idiot who'd twice thrown himself bodily into the abyss so Chu Wanning could remain pristine. This concerned the rest of his life. The snow crunched underfoot as he slowly walked the path. A small, run-down cottage rose up before him. Chu Wanning stood before the door, fingertips trembling. Only a single panel of flimsy, weathered wood separated him from the courtyard in front of him. Yet somehow, it seemed heavier than the gate to the demon realm. Chu Wanning swallowed, blood thundering in his ears. He stood rooted to the spot, like a block of wood. Several times he lifted his hand only to drop it before his fingers touched the door. Hiya, the little dragon wailed. If you're not going to open the door, I'll do it. The door swung open, though neither Chu Wanning nor the dragon had touched it. It had been ajar to begin with. Perhaps the wind had nudged it wider out of pity for this grieving, lonesome man. Chu Wanning didn't move. He took in the sight of the spare little cottage on the other side of the threshold. The trees had yet to bud, their branches still laden with snow. The wind blew, and flurries scattered like high-tongue blossoms through the golden morning, landing on a man's broad shoulders. Hearing movement, the man paused, then slowly turned around. In the shimmering light and shadow, one could almost mistake the scene for one of the flourishing heights of spring or the blazing days of summer. Before this, Chuaning couldn't hear the gusting of the wind, the whisper of the snow, the rustling of the leaves. Now all of it rushed into his ears at once. The mortal world's multitudinous sights and sounds seemed to strike his chest like a surging tide. He wanted to rush forward, but his limbs felt leaden. He couldn't take a single step. In that moment, Chuaning seemed to hear the cicadas that chirped below the heaven-piercing tower all those years ago, during the very best years of Moron's life. That bright-eyed youth had walked up to the Yuhang elder standing in the shade of a tree. He'd walked into the genesis of it all, to that first crossing of their intertwined fates. Chuaning, the little dragon poked him on the waist. Chuaning crashed back to reality, but his throat was so dry he couldn't say anything. Slowly, he walked toward the man standing under the withered tree. He walked toward the culmination of it all, toward the end of 2 lifetimes of desolation, toward a future without uncertainty. The wind blew, and the leaves of the forest murmured an answer. Chuaning seemed to pass through an eternity, wreathed in smoke and beacon fires, before he finally came to stand before that man. All those years ago, the teenaged Mo Wei Yu had come to a stop before Chuaning, still young himself. He'd looked up and grinned. Tishan Jun, Tishan Jun. Chuaning seemed to hear that bygone voice again, 2 lifetimes later. I've been watching you for ages. Why won't you pay attention to me? The valley was serene, flooded with ruddy morning light. It was as though they were the only 2 people left between heaven and earth. Moron wore an outer robe draped over his shoulders. He had the wan complexion of someone recovering from long illness. As he watched Chuaning walk to him out of the sun, his pitch-black eyes welled. With unspeakable tenderness. She's in. The wind stilled. A brilliant ray of light speared through the clouds, illuminating the blood-stained mortal realm. I met a demon, and then I had a very strange experience. I'll have to tell you about it. The chaos had passed. Years from now, upon the ground where blood had spilled today, plum blossoms would bloom anew. It's the end of the chapter, as you could see. If you could also see, when we come back on Tuesday, we will only be reading 1 chapter. And I had a feeling, considering this 1 chapter is like 40 fucking pages, that if there was going to be a part in Volume 10 where the main story ended, it's probably with the last big fuck off chapter. And I think I was right. Because we'll be on page 205 for chapter 311, which is called the grand finale. I'm taking deep breaths so that I don't break down into a sobbing heap. At least not on camera. Man, I am indeed speechless. I have nothing productive to add at this moment that isn't going to wind up again with me in a puddle of tears. So it's Thursday, right? Okay, so all all the things I could be thinking right now, the one thing that I'm thinking of that's coherent enough that I can say is that chapter 311 better be 40 pages of the most bombastic, loving, athletic, filthy fucking I've ever read in my entire life. And that would actually be my bet. I'll be here next week on Tuesday and Thursday, starting at 2:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with the book chats. And then from 3 to 5 are these reading streams. That's Tuesdays and Thursdays. I'm going to go. Thank you for being here. I hope you have a lovely weekend. Love is fucking real, and I'll see you in a few days. And most importantly, take care of yourself, please.